Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thumbprint conversation. Today, we will be in conversation with Nabina Das, a poet and an author. So, I'll send an invite to Nabina Das. Yes, I've sent an invite, and Nabina, I've sent you an invite. Please accept the invite. And let me tell you something about Thumbprint magazine. We are an online magazine, and we call ourselves an international magazine with a northeastern soul. And when big money rules media, uh, we are a brave new venture, and we started on a shoestring budget. And Nabina Das, can you? I had sent you an invite. Yeah, you have to accept the invitation. Nabina Das. She's the one. Nabina Das. You have to accept the invitation. We're just trying to connect with her. And meanwhile, let me just tell you more about the Thumbprint. We started on a shoestring budget, and it would be too ambitious to call ourselves I think I'll have to check whether she's. Yeah, did you get the invite, Nabina? So, we are more of a bridge. It would be too ambitious to call us as a bridge. Actually, we are more of a scaffold trying to reach out to the world and bring the world to the region. But we hope to grow not only in numbers and figures, but as an institution that would help dispel many myths and stereotypes about the region. And I have sent you the invite, and I don't know how to. Yes, add. Okay, I'm adding you. So we had about the coffee shop. I'm adding you, Nabina. Okay, let me tell you more about Thumbprint conversations.
Oh,
Yeah, hi Nabina, we can see you now.
hi. Oh
Uh,
God, thankfully. Yeah, right.
yeah, but now am I visible?
Yes, you are visible to me. I was fumbling with the accept button and I didn't know where to look
Yeah,
for this thing actually.
but you have
But
to
I
be
think
stable. Yeah.
yeah, I
So
have to keep it stable somewhere. I'm just trying to, what happened now? Something
I,
happened.
you turned it. You have to make the camera face you. And what about me?
I can see you. I'm trying to see where, I'm back. Okay, okay. So I'm trying to make the camera stable somewhere. But yeah, we can see each other. I can hear you also.
You turned it. You have to make the camera face. And what about me?
Can you see me?
I can see you. Trying to see where. I'm back. Okay, okay. Yeah, I can see you. I can see you. So,
Okay.
make the camera stable somewhere.
But yeah, we can see each other. I can hear you also.
Mhm. Yeah, so as I was talking about thumbprint conversations,
Yeah.
yeah. So in fact, yeah, we were inspired. Going.
There is some noise coming. I don't know who's talking, but
Yeah. So I think everything is clear now.
we can see
Well,
each other. We can hear each other. There
yeah.
is some.
Uh, well, uh, well, the thumbprint conversation was inspired by the coffee shop at the
Yeah.
Guardian news, which was started by the Guardian newspaper, and it was called Guardian Coffee at Box Park in London. And in fact, that transported the traditional relationship between journalists and coffee shops into the digital age. Visitors could walk in and view the Guardian and Observer iPad editions on bounce pads. The site also offers a space for journalists to work. It reflects the newspapers it reflects the newspaper's commitment to open journalism by providing a place where the public can meet the journalist. So inspired by this coffee shop, we are a tiny venture. So we had initiated the thumbprint conversation. And through this, we wanted to connect with our readers with some, and have some real time one to one conversations. And so, like a traveling circus, we were moving around uh, all over India and even to the US. So we had conversations on relevant issues and issues which were of contemporary importance. So now that with the lockdown, now that we can't meet, we can't have real time one to one conversations, so we can have online conversations. So that is why we had we had initiated the online conversations. Uh, and we decided on the theme, why women write. And we have been having conversations with women who write from all over the world and all over India. And we're just trying to understand, uh, is women writing different from men writing, or what is it that women are constrained by several factors, but in spite of that, they've been writing, and now women are also aggressively promoting their work, their literary activities. So, welcome everyone. Tonight we have Nabina Das with us. Nabina Das, her beautiful poems is a daring blend of modern motifs that sets her as a leading voice in today's poetry scene. So Nabina Das is an author of 5 books, poetry collections: Sanskarnama, Into the Migrant City, and Blue Vessel. Fiction volume titled The House of Twining Roses, and Footprints in the Bajra, a novel. She is a Charles Wallace Sangam House and Sahapedia UNESCO Fellow. Published widely, Nabina is a New York State Summer Writers Conference alumna, a Commonwealth Writers Correspondent, a journalist by training, and a creative writing teacher in university classrooms and workshops. So basically, we want this to be a free-flowing conversation, and Nabina will be reading three to four uh, short poems in between. And basically, I was quite apprehensive about doing this conversation because I've never written poetry in my whole life, and I'm like talking to a poet. So, Nabina, I want to ask you, what is poetry? What does it do to your soul? And why is it that everyone cannot write poetry? Like, I've never been able to write poetry, and I find it very difficult to understand poetry. So,
Okay.
Excuse.
Hi, Teresa. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So
Yeah.
first of all, let me thank you for inviting me here. Like you have never written poetry, I've never done a live Facebook session, and I was joking with friends all the time, saying you'll catch me dead or alive today. But I know you well, although we haven't really met. But I've read you so much, and I'm sure you have read me. I'm kind of like really relaxed right now that I'm here. Finally managed to become live. So I just want to let my friends know here who are watching that I'm very privileged to be with Thumbprint magazine, for which I have written columns and essays and poetry, of course. And Teresa Rehman is an award-winning journalist. Like I'm sure everybody knows about Bulletproof, the book that she has written, and she has written countless reports and accounts from being based in Northeast about Northeast. And so we share this very unique connection of being from the Northeast because I'm born and brought up in Guwahati. And so to be talking to an award-winning journalist who's also a writer, I think it's a great thing to happen today. And since we can't really meet in person, and I'm also very happy to have friends who are watching. So Teresa, to come back to your question, you said like you what how why do I write and what it does to my soul, etc. I take poetry more or less as a very rigorous, discipline. Like a botanist would take botany as a rigorous discipline, like a doctor would take the job of healing as a particular discipline. So I don't entirely believe in these flashes of inspiration, although there are things in my mind. I'm sure, like for all who write poetry. So for me, soul is again a concept that I tread very cautiously on, which I interpret as sensibility, as conscience, and as also responsible behavior. I think it is Auden who said that poetry is connected to human rights very closely. And if I'm paraphrasing him. So for me, what it does to my soul, quote unquote, is make me more aware of people's conditions, about the conditions in society, especially today, because we are meeting during pandemic, and the pandemic has caused us so much misery on so many fronts, and we are watching it every day. So yes, something that poetry should do to our soul is search within us to hold ourselves responsible, accountable, and find answers as much as possible. So it is very much a discipline for me that way. And as for
Okay.
you, never having written poetry, Teresa, I'm sure you never tried. So if you try, sit down and do it. I'll be glad to look over someday.
No. Well, that would be too ambitious, actually. Uh, well, do you think you really need to, you have to validate yourself as a woman while writing poetry, or am I being too stereotypical and asking a question that is,
No, I think it's a question that comes into people's mind for various reasons. One reason is like as women writers and women poets, you're a woman journalist and writer. I'm a poet. I have a journalism background as well. And do we need to validate ourselves as women? The answer cannot be given in yes and no because I feel identity is such an interesting and complex label, and women have to eke out their spaces constantly because historically, systematically, women have been denied spaces, denied agency. And so it's not that I want to look for validation as a woman poet, but when there is a need to stand out as a woman who gains from matters of the world, from others around her, from like-minded people, from allies, I think it is very important to be counted as a woman writer, as a woman journalist, as a woman poet, and it's just to make sure that the the discourse, the dialogue doesn't get lost, that women are yet not, accorded that place in history and society. And the fight is long, the battle is long. And this is not just to say, to say I'm a feminist writer or feminist this and feminist that. It becomes too easy. I think this whole dialogue should be more complex and involve everybody, not just women, but men, women. And,
Hmm.
I always keep saying the future is, intersectional. So we have to also keep in mind it's not just the binary of male, female, but we have to look at intersectionality and learn as we go, evolve. Because once you stop evolving, you stop the quest, and you cannot become a scientist, you cannot become a poet, a writer, or a journalist, or a
Mhm.
learner anymore.
Somehow, as a female journalist, female within quotes, I've been able to connect more with women in media, So, uh, do you think you've been able to connect, you have a special connection with, female poets, female within quotes again? Somehow, do you think that being a woman alters the language of poetry?
Uh, I think being a woman definitely gives you, very specific insight into everything that is happening around us. As far as establishing connection, I wouldn't necessarily say that, I connect easily or faster or more effectively to only women. I have friends who are men and women who write poetry, and who are journalists, who are other professionals, and I kind of like to, I have lots of selfish interest in learning from people, looking at how people write, read, speak, deliver. Although I might not be able to, assess all of it, but I think, but I do understand that having, the notion of female journalist or a female poet or female writer, I think it is again connects to my last answer that we need this bit of awareness. I mean, the question of essence is important only when you know that a lot of things historically, systematically has been denied to a particular category of people. So here, one needs to talk about how women have contributed to the arts, to the letters, to sciences. So that's how I see it. And I like to connect across, not just women alone, but I
Mhm.
think I know a fair number of well-established women achievers, one being you.
Uh, okay, coming back to the pandemic, why do you feel compelled to write, and do you still feel compelled in the current scenario, the pandemic, the lockdown, the whole freedom of expression being at stake?
Uh, I I don't think the pandemic is making me write more or less. Uh, that's mainly because I don't write on certain occasions. I mean, I don't write necessarily birthday poetry or, funeral tribute or a pandemic. Um, yeah. So the pandemic has definitely made me aware of certain needs, because we are more in need of human interaction, because we are not able to touch and see each other. And the other day I posted a poem by, I think it was Ada Limon, the American poet, and she wrote about touch in such simplified but elegant way. And that's why, I mean, the need is to look around us in a more heightened, aware way, which is happening. But I'm not necessarily writing only quote unquote pandemic poetry. But I do feel that here, when we are writing, we should also remember it's not just writing just to sort of keep a daily record of. I mean, we always used to cook, so it's nothing like pandemic cooking. So I don't understand the question of pandemic cooking or pandemic cleaning or housework. I mean, people do that all the time. And now, because we cannot do anything else, I mean, we are kind of labeling it. But yeah, on the other hand, I think the pandemic has given me an opportunity to at least to try and understand the troubles and travails of a lot of other people whose lives I don't know, whose lives completely like, I can't write a poem on the workers marching down the street. I mean, I've been thinking about it. The workers, I watch their videos, I read news, I get angry, but I have not been able to bring myself to write something about it because I feel, those lives I need to understand better, and I need to hold myself also accountable to for whatever is happening around. And only then probably I can find that space in my head where I can create something. So I'm writing on and off. I've written a few poems. Necessarily, I won't be calling them pandemic poetry, pandemic poems. But if you want me to read something, I can
Yeah,
try.
would
You
you
want
like
me
to
to
read
read
out something?
something?
Yeah, yeah.
Let me see. So these poems. Okay. So I wrote poems which were sort of very again, like a daily thing for me. For example, I wrote a poem about a garlic pod, since we are talking about cooking and cleaning all the time. And so I was just looking at my kitchen counter garlic pod. So I'll just read that. It's called
Mm.
Existential. The lone garlic pod is a monk sitting over the kitchen counter, a silent, oblong ascetic. He chants all possible incantations against harsher times. Green shoots are just reminders of its absolute indivisible powers, slow preservation, but already escalation on the path of what we humans call life. It is draped in white because, no, not a shroud. It is just the ample tenacity of the alabaster form, stoic and firm on the cool granite. What seems slow to the eye is actually a grand resolution that, past all ages of the earth, this pod will cradle in its inside our capers, apathy, and pride. We'll write ditties to the moon. A lot of people were writing poems about moon. We will write ditties to the moon, call our sighs poems. The pod will shake its head. It'll preserve its sharp cynicism for harsher times ahead. That was
Okay,
the garlic poem.
okay. And in fact, the pandemic has, I don't know if it has taught me or it has inspired me to dabble with technology. So I've started this series, Facebook lives. I was never confident about going live, but I thought let me try, let me move with the times. And so I thought let me try.
Yeah, I am
So
doing the
some
unthinkable. Like,
yeah,
I'm also
so
doing the
uh,
unthinkable.
yeah, so I was more of a print person, but now I thought that let me try. So I think the pandemic has taught me this. And now somehow this
Oh,
lockdown has made me so I don't know whether it's inertia or something else. I just don't want to go out now. I just want to be home. I don't want to dress up and go out. So it has made me more lazy, I guess. But anyway, Nabina, you have also a journalism background. Uh, Tell us a little about it and how it start. How did you know how did it sit with
uh,
your literary interests?
yeah, well, I mean, I became a cub reporter, a cub sub editor long ago after when I was graduating from Cotton College, and then I worked for the Sentinel in Guwahati for a while. Then I was in JNU thereafter, very soon, and I did my masters there. I did my MPhil 1 year course, but I was always interested in journalism, so I kept freelancing with various newspapers, and then I worked with Down to Earth Environmental Magazine because of my special interest in environment and related fields. So I worked there for a while, and in between, I tried completing my PhD, but I dropped out. I think everybody knows the story that I'm a proud PhD dropout. And then I went to the US for a long time, where I also worked as local town. I was the assistant town editor for a small American newspaper called the Ithaca Journal. And that taught me a lot of things because after Sentinel and Down to Earth and freelancing with some, newspapers, I was actually tasting what they call slice Americana because it was such a small town and the problems and the issues were so different from what we have experienced in India. But basically, everything still veered towards one. It was all human concern, human interest in having a better life, better education, school districts, labor laws and entertainment, and also things like food and culture. Because I used to also write pop culture columns. Then when I came back in 2011, I was a student again from 2010 to 2011 when I went for my MFA in Rutgers Camden. But I continued also publishing commentaries and stuff for Scroll and EPW and Dark Tribune. I've written a little bit for Hindu Business Line also. And, but I figured out that being a journalist didn't really cut me off from my creative writing endeavors, and it sort of supplemented it. Like, for example, I want to read you a poem called Namami. And this
Okay.
is actually written when the Namami Brahmaputra project was in full swing in Assam. And we know all what happened right after the Namami Brahmaputra. The big flood came, everything got washed away, and so much money, so much taxpayers' resources spent in that. So as a journalist, I was reading the reports, I was analyzing things in my head, and as a poet, then I wrote a poem. So let me read that to you. So I
Yeah,
kind of
sure,
like,
sure.
yeah. So Namami. The river has descended on our conversation. The river needs no name, no evocation. Its daybreaks and evenings are silked along its route. Hyacinths float up to its fairy span, and everything is falling in for the man river, its red eyes and tears. Everything is what they're bending down to cleanse, each palm full of water, losing its sparkle in the din. The flotsam too frothy and fickle to be called a blessing, to be offered a chant. Namami, Namami, Namami. The chorus, anyway, doesn't save the dolphins of twilight. The flood still rages forward, carrying plastic bags, discarded condoms, the surf of human excreta, dead cattle, and the elixir of waste dripping from our human errors, one drop by one drop by one. Namami, Namami, Namami. The chant doesn't raise the dead children, their eyes water-soaked pale flowers, their teeth clotted in water's rush, seeking mother's arms. They need no evocation, no chants. The river needs no arms. It needs only a daybreak, only a course to follow, to flow as freedom does, singing, "It is me, it is me, it is me."
Okay, that's lovely. In fact, I could connect with two things. One was Ithaca. Like I've been to Ithaca. Were you in Cornell?
Oh, no, I actually lived very close to Cornell University, and I worked for Ithaca Journal, which was in the
Yeah.
downtown State
Okay.
Street. Do you
Okay.
know
Okay.
how long
Yeah,
have you
because
been there?
I was there for almost a year, and I was in Rochester, which is like upstate New York, and just close to Ithaca.
What a
So
boring place.
yeah, no, it's a lovely place. I really liked.
Is it?
Yeah, so I went there once to see Cornell,
Okay.
and
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful, beautiful city.
yeah, and for
So,
those who don't know,
uh,
Nabina also has a Assam connection. So she was born and brought up in Assam. That's it.
yes, I'm born and brought up in Assam. I'm a Guwahati girl and a very proud Guwahati girl. Although I haven't been to Assam now almost close to a decade, it seems. There were two, three
Decade.
occasions
Okay.
that almost a decade. I'm sorry,
Okay.
but but my heart is there, and I still have relatives all over Assam and Northeast. So Everything I kind of write harks back to that sort of sensibility. Even though I've lived in Delhi for a while, I've lived abroad for some time, I've come back and lived in Hyderabad. So, and also I'll tell you why I feel that Assam or the Northeast still lives in me is because um, there's this poem I thought I would read again if you have time.
Mm-hmm.
Rivers, because I grew up by the Brahmaputra, and
Mm-hmm.
Brahmaputra, or the Buraluit, as we call in
Mm-hmm.
Assamese, is
Mm-hmm.
a very, very important motif in my work, I feel. And I feel
Okay.
the river simply just flows through whatever I do. So I actually
Hmm.
have another poem called Rivers to Rivers, you want to listen.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Okay, so this poem is called Rivers to Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
Even Namami was about the river, of course, you know. So it's about the
Mm-hmm.
project Namami
And
Brahmaputra.
before you start, I would just like to tell our viewers that if they have any queries, they can ask Navina. Yeah.
Okay,
So you
I
can
hope
read
I
out
can
your poem.
read the. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So Vivas to Rivers is dedicated to the poet Martin Espada. He's one of the foremost Latino American poets who's also an activist. And I somehow take this thing seriously, like poets who are also socially responsible, at least, you know, offering us ideas. How does a girl love? How she grows up and leaves her gods and lovers and walks miles and miles ahead. How does a girl make way in between traces of sand and body slime, spot to spot? All where we went because we didn't have roots. All who we, all who we loved are our secrets. My grandma called hens Muslim birds. So pigeons became birds of sanskar, pure thoughts despite the shit they spluttered on our walls. Because the neighbor had another word for a fruit, we stopped saying what the vagina dreams. When we speak of spaces, we measure tones, trebles, and some sprinkling of vowels. How will the girls utter, dream, rebel, rise? Will traverse laws on our uterus, surrogate identities, and rewrite geographies because poets must. We will. Deep autumn now, our breath is fast. We become the river, we the verse.
Okay, that's lovely. And now I think we are also having online book launches and online lit fest, and so do you think this is really going to change? This whole lockdown is going to change the literary, the way literary discussions are conducted, and how do you see the future? I mean, somehow I feel that this is going to go on and on for years. Um,
I That's a great question, but Teresa, I just don't know if I have the answer, but it seems that we are in for a long haul. I think we
mhm.
will have to wait for a while before things become quote unquote normal. I mean, that's why I mentioned Ada Limon's poem on touch, because it's the touch, not just the physical touch, but you know, when you meet someone face to face, what you feel. Digitally, of course, we can see each other, see each other's expressions, but it's a completely different thing when you see a human in person and
Mm.
sense that, you know, have that range of emotions. Uh, so Litfests, I'm, you know, I don't go to all Litfests, so I'm not bothered about most of them, but I have been to those smaller homegrown ones, which have actually accorded a place to poetry, because that's one thing I think, you know, I don't like to be packed like sardines in a hall, and just because I have to be seen and be there, I don't really want to go. And also, I so I'm sure the LitFest people are figuring it out for themselves. They're doing webinars and similar live sessions, and I've done a Zoom with a particular literary space in Amritsar a few days ago, which was very enjoyable. And I did it because they are a small independent literary space like Thumbprint. It's called Maja House, and so met a few poets online. I think we have to do that for a while. I mean, personally, I despise being seen. Personally, I just don't like being on video. And every time when friends say we will video you, and I keep saying no, no, no. But it's only because when I feel confident that okay, I'm going to be with Teresa, so I'm going to be okay.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
but yeah, but
Yeah.
things will change. Things are, I think, are going to be a long way. But I'm also worried about books. You know, are we going to
Hmm.
read them in print more, or keep reading them online as Kindle versions, e-books? Because I like holding my book
Hmm.
uh, in my hand, and this is my book,
Hmm.
but it's anybody else's book that I can
Hmm.
talk about. So
So,
I really, yeah,
hmm, so
yes,
yeah, Madhu Raghavendra says homegrown lit fests are chill. Okay, yeah, I agree. I agree. You don't get lost. You
yeah,
feel much at home. Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
And
yeah,
your this book, Sanskar Nama. Can you tell us
yeah.
something
That's the
about
one
it?
I
Yeah,
was.
it's a latest book, right?
Yeah, this is
It's a,
the latest and my third
yeah,
poetry
yeah.
collection. I have three books,
Okay. Hmm.
so I'm going to display this today, which I usually
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
So
Sure,
my
sure.
first book is Blue Vessel.
Okay. Huh.
This was published from Denmark by an independent press called Les Editions du Zaporog, and it is published by Professor Sebastian Dubinsky, who is a professor in Aarhus University, and he does very selective books. And I really look up to Seb a lot, and I don't know if Seb is watching this or not, but I'll let him know that I mentioned him because he still is such a great writer and an advisor, a friend. So, and my second book was Into the Migrant City. This is
Mm-hmm.
from Writers Workshop,
Mm-hmm.
Kolkata, which Writers Workshop of P. Lal. P. Lal is no more. So Professor
Mm-hmm.
Anandulal, P. Lal's son, is running right now, and I'm friends with Shuktara Lal P. Ananda's daughter on Facebook, and they're great people. I just love the way they have treated this book. And Sanskar Nama is my latest book from Red River, and publisher is Dibyajyoti Sharma. He's from Assam. So this book particularly, I am very, happy to read all the time. Those last two poems I read was from here, because
Mm-hmm.
again, Dibya and I share the Assam connection, Northeast connection, and
Mm-hmm.
also about, when we talk about not just rivers and blue mountains and all kind of things, but also people, agitations, and the political atmosphere that we've been through in Assam. I mean, you as a journalist know better. I mean, we've been through long spell of ASU-led Assam agitation, and we've heard from our parents so many other incidents from before. And my parents are of partition generation, so there's a lot more story that I hear. Then we had also experienced the Alpha uprising and the resultant chaos that ensued. And so somewhere, so since Karnama actually happened very quickly, which is not really my way of doing things, but I was so angered and anguished that I just wrote down these poems. And when I asked Divya, like, what do you think? And he says, yeah, we can do it. And so let's go. And so we just did it. And
Mm-hmm.
I call it Sanskarnama also because Sanskar is like a Sanskrit word, and Nama comes from the Persian like chronicle, dastabej, accounting.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
also give it that sort of portmanteau-ness to it,
Mm-hmm.
and so I mean I've read the poems in various places. Mostly, I think young people were very enthused about it whenever I went to universities and read out. Like I read a poem called "My Neighbor is a Gorakshak." Do you want to hear that,
Okay.
or are we running
And
out of time?
uh, I mean, what is? Are you planning something new? What's your?
I I I have, I mean, honestly speaking, I have two manuscripts, but I am completely being lazy. And every time I read those poems, I feel like tweaking them. And maybe I'll get them published. But now, since you are asking, I think publishing industry itself is going through some sort of, soul searching to put it that way. I mean, publishing industry is also figuring out how to actually do books, right? I mean, would they be able to publish new books? Will they produce hard copies? How are they going to stock it and then courier and mail out and sell them and stock it in the real bookstores? And how much of it is possible? I know there are some independent bookstores who are actually sending out books, like walking book fairs in Bhubaneswar run by Shatabdi Mishra. She's
Yeah,
doing a
yeah.
great job, Shatabdi and Akshaya. Yeah, they're doing a
Mm-hmm.
great job by sending books out. And also, I think Pagdandi in Pune. And there are a few such independent little bookstores who are still, trying to keep it. But I really don't know. I mean, personally, when I will publish the next books, but it'll be poetry. I have
Mm-hmm.
few poetry collections somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I keep
And
writing, not always thinking of collections.
do you have any word of advice for budding poets, young poets who want to um,
Uh, I think it's always good to just read more, just keep reading. So yeah, if somebody is writing and wanting her work to be vetted, to be published and seen, I would say keep reading, read as widely as possible. Read canonical literature, read contemporary literature, and read also your peers. So and then also maybe have a peer group to discuss, or a little. I'm not so much of a great believer in workshops, although I have done workshops and I do conduct workshops. But I
huh.
feel it's the reading and dialogue that matter most, than
Mm-hmm.
just sitting down in a mechanical way and uh, doing things. I mean, everything does contribute, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, read
Mm-hmm.
first, read a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, be not afraid to be rejected, because rejection happens, and because I have a lot of people telling me, I am getting rejected and I'm very upset and I don't think I'm made for it. But rejections have happened, and they happen even now. I mean, not everybody is supposed to like my work. I don't invite everybody to like
Mm.
my work at all. So, uh,
And
and as a journalist, like again, as you know that
mm,
we have to take bombs. So
mm,
just be ready for it.
mhm. And just as a creative writing teacher, I mean, can you actually teach creative writing, uh,
Uh,
or can you hone your, or maybe that helps you to hone your skills, but somehow I get the feeling that creative writing should come from within. You cannot teach creative writing. What do you think
the
as
whole
a
term creative writing itself is slightly warped. Like writing is a creative act. So to call it creative writing, it's an American notion that has been handed down to us. And we who all went to American universities and did a creative writing MFA, etc., we kind of like
Mhm,
we have started talking like that. But while talking about creative writing, I also try to tell myself and the people I teach. I don't like to use the word teach, because most of the time I think it's a collaborative learning. It's a very collective work if you're in
mhm,
a group. So, but this so-called creative writing can help someone at least gain access to different sources of reading, different books, a wide range of whatever your interest is, poetry, fiction,
mhm,
nonfiction. So,
mhm,
and maybe find, an empathetic a group of people who would sort
mhm,
of help you, guide you, maybe even
mhm,
be ruthless to you. I mean, I've seen places where people break down into tears because the so-called creative writing process was so brutal. But I look at it as an interactive thing. My classes are seminar style classes. I don't prepare lectures. I don't take
mhm,
notes to give out. I invite students to bring their reading and I offer my readings, and we do a mashup. We kind of like see what. So it is very interactive. I ask my students to bring what they have learned so far, and then we try talk about it. with it, we talk about issues like politics and philosophy, questions of identity, and really a lot of some sticky stuff sometimes, you know. So, but I believe that's the only way to, become creative in
Mm-hmm.
writing. Otherwise, creative writing doesn't mean, writing a dozen poems on sun and moonlight and rain and beautiful flowers. The entire world is doing that.
Mm-hmm. So
That's my take.
conversations help, conversations,
I
real-time
think
conversations
conversations
help.
help, and conversations that empower you, that guide you, and also there is something like an ideological standpoint that I believe in. Like
Mm-hmm.
say you can say it's my background or my family, which was very political, or my friends mostly, and I look at it that way. That without being a political being and an ideological being, you cannot really make
Mm-hmm.
much mark. I mean, you can write beautiful stuff once a while, but not everything is quote unquote beautiful. There are a lot of things which are, like Martin Luther's speech, I have a dream. People
Mm-hmm.
call it speech, I call it poetry. Or what
Mm-hmm.
Rohit Vemula, the letter he wrote before he was institutionally murdered, I think that's poetry. And, and because they were political beings and because they understood their times and the needs of the time. And unless that ideological standpoint is clear to myself, and I make it clear what it is for others as well, I don't think much creativity can be sustained just like that. My rain
Mm-hmm.
poems will get lost in thousand other rain poems in this world. Even I'll not care after a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we just have a few minutes more and we'll look for our readers' questions if they have any questions. Malkit Kaur writes, I concur with you, Nabina. Reading does help, and I keep saying that to my students who are budding poets and poetesses. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Malkit
Thank you,
Kaur, yeah.
Malkit. Yeah, I agree.
Uh-huh.
So
And
I'd like to, Teresa, because I reviewed your book, Bulletproof, I was thinking like, I want to read out a few lines, not from the book, but what I wrote about your book, so that people
sure, sure.
understand why we are talking today. Because we,
Yeah.
as women writers, women journalists, and why women write, that's the great, canonical question that we are trying to address. So I want to tell my friends who are listening in here that these few lines from the review I did of Teresa's book. It's heartening to note that Rehman's Bulletproof outlines the condition of women in this wilderness of human follies and violently tragic events. And these human follies and tragic events are references to Teresa's chapters on uh, function, the way they uh, kill or save or deliver. It's for people to interpret. How these women she writes about, how they live, eat, clean, and cook, and simply wait despite being a part of revolutionary outfits as cadres, as cadres, as wives or family of cadres and leaders. More than conflict and its continuation, her women seem inclined to what all humans ought to, a life of peace. So this is where I want to let people know that Bulletproof, written by Teresa, is not just a book about militancy or combat or conflict, but it's actually, they it has women as the template, and it is about women who want peace. So your description of Malati Rani Narzari, the border woman who runs an NGO, and
Mm-hmm.
where they weave the dokhana, which is the border
Mm-hmm.
upper cloth, right? So that traditional dokhana weaving is, to me, it's a metaphor. It is as
Mm-hmm.
poetic as it can be in a landscape of violence. Where
Mm-hmm.
there are countless groups with armed combatants. There, the women are actually showing and weaving for. That's why I'm very happy that you wrote that part in your book, because uh,
Mm-hmm.
the the weaving symbolizes that
Mm-hmm.
reunifying everybody, redoing the society,
Mm-hmm.
restitching back um,
Mm-hmm.
all that is lost in militancy. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's my take
Yeah.
on your work.
Thank you so much. In fact, reporting conflict is very, very masculine, has been always been very, very masculine. So that is why I, wanted to look at it from a gender lens and,
Hmm.
try to understand the voices of those silent women and how it affects women, children, and how it affects the other things, how it affects your nature, your environment, your music, your sanitation, your water needs. So,
Yeah.
it has a wide range of implications. So I'm trying to look
I,
at yeah, conflict with a
yeah.
different lens. So I think it was. I don't think we have any queries from our readers. Maybe they can always connect with you later if they want to ask you any questions. And it was lovely talking to you, Nabina. If you would like to read out something, one more poem, if you want
I
to,
can
we can
read
end with that.
short. If we have a couple of minutes, I can read some short poems because
Yeah. So we can
yeah.
end with that. Yeah.
So right. There's this poem which is again, it was not written so much as a poem, but um, as something I was thinking, and it got translated into Nepalese, and my good friend Chandra Gurung, who's a Nepali poet from,
Mhm.
he lives in Bahrain though. I'm not sure if he's
Mhm.
around here, but he wanted to. So it's called Thinking Tank, and also although probably Bina Sarkar Ilyas is not here, but Bina Di had posted something very recently about John Lennon's Imagine There's No Heaven. And so I'm kind of dedicating this reading to Bina Di, who's maybe here, maybe not here, but Thinking
Mhm.
Tank. Imagine there's no heaven. John Lennon. Imagine a world where battle tanks are sabzi mandi. Think of the hard body making room for carrots to clumber. Around the caterpillar, both sides, we can thrash sugarcane for juice. The cannon firer will sprinkle water to keep the spinach fresh, the cucumbers cool, and think how it'd occasionally lob a melon into the buyer's shopping bag. Imagine a world where tanks can be libraries. The hatch a perfect bookaholics hole. Think how there's enough perch to hang legs on the sides, read a Pamuk or a Kamala Das, chat up a Chomsky, or make love to Lorca. Think of books smelling like gunpowder of the mortar of a poet's imagination. Imagine a world where tanks become a baby's cradle, softly rocking on to move all anguish away, rocking the boat in rough waters, swinging and singing. Think how all tanks would only cradle smiling faces. Think of no battles. Imagine a world of only thinking tanks.
Well, that was lovely, and I think it would help us provoke some thoughts, and we can think of better times ahead. And this interview will be available on my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel, so I'm trying to dabble with technology. Please
Yeah.
click on the bell icon in my YouTube channel. It's Teresa Rehman, and keep watching Thumbprint Conversations. We are going to have more such conversations, and we'll have women from uh, different fields writing, and we have a rich few more episodes to pay, and good night.
Okay, Teresa, so give me the notifications whenever you plan these readings because I really had a great time being here.
Yeah,
And
sure, sure,
so for the forthcoming ones, also let me know.
sure. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you too. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thanks to
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.